trading across the globe. It is not something new. It goes back to 5,000 years. It goes back to our own civilizations. We have the Pancha system. We have the Sarini system, other forms of system, where people decided small dispute. When I was doing a research, I was asked as to why were they succeeding? And the answer was simple. You go to a village and you have a panchas deciding disputes in the village. They know both parties. And before your own peers, you can't lie. Because they know what is the position. And therefore, things were succeeding. Of course, now the punch system also had its side, namely, it was more caste oriented than the others. And then economic factors, other factors have resulted in transforming all these matters before courts of law. Now, what is arbitration? Arbitration basically is two persons having a dispute going before a third person, or two other persons who appoint a third person and getting the dispute resolved. This basically is the concept of arbitration. Now, in the course of my speech, of talk today, and I will not be too long, considering I know that too many students over here, and most students like to hear two lectures at the same time, without a break. So I will bear that in mind. So the issue before us now is arbitration an answer as an effective ADR, an alternative dispute resolution? Now you come to Bombay, you have the Mumbai Stock Exchange. Now for over 100 years, disputes arising between members of the Bombay Stock Exchange don't go to courts. They had their own internal system. And who decided that? It was decided by their own members who are experts in the field, who did it. So therefore, arbitration requires an expertise in the field. Without expertise, it will not be possible. And when you say expertise, for example, we come to as judges. What should be your expertise in the field? Writ jurisdiction is one. But you must have your solid knowledge of contract law. You must have your solid knowledge of other commercial laws. Now, without having this basic knowledge, either as an arbitrator or as a judge, it becomes difficult to decide on those subjects. Now, in the course of my speech, I will be commenting on some judgments, and the law students may note that my comments are not Article 141 comments. You will still be bound by the judgment of the Supreme Court, that will be the law. But I will point out to you in the course, right in the beginning, arbitration in India is not something new. It was there in the old code of, before the 1908 code came into force, it was there in that part of the Civil Procedure Code. Then came the Act of 1899. Then we have the 1940 Act and the Act of 1996. This is the history of the arbitration acts in India. But believe me, every time an act came, our judges always said, oh, what have they done? There are too many open questions left. Now one must understand that when the draftsman drafts a law, he takes into account the social and political norms of those days. He can't foresee for the next 50 years. He may foresee for the next 10 years. He may foresee what is happening in the world around and then put that into the act. But then Human minds are such, lawyers are such that you always pick up some fault somewhere. And if a judge does not have his basics right in that subject, then he commits mistakes. Now, in the Act of 1899, comments were made, and the judgment is on for those who are academically inclined. Dinkarai Lakshmi Prasad versus Yashwant Rao Mani Prasad, AR 1930, Bomb 98. Under the 40 Act, you will remember the famous comments. Lawyers laugh all the way to the bank and philosophers weep. This is in Guru Nanak's case. And then came the 1996 case, wherein Bhatia International, the Supreme Court lamented. But nobody laments when judges go wrong. I point out to you where judges have gone wrong. And it takes 10 years, 15 years to remedy those mistakes. And in the course of that, more mistakes are committed. And still after the mistakes are committed, you continue to make further mistakes. The first aspect of why arbitration, you may ask, why should a person go to arbitration? Now, between the court of law and an arbitration, both decide the same issues, namely, the subject matter which can be decided by a civil court can also be decided by the arbitrator. But here the Supreme Court says no, so there are some as to whether the arbitrators can fully decide what a court can do. I'll come when it comes to fraud. So therefore there is the subject matter, what the court can decide, the arbitrator can decide. But what is important is, arbitral process is faster. Arbitral process, you can choose an arbitrator of your choice. You can decide whether this person is competent enough to decide my issue. Unlike the courts where in a court of law you go to a judge. Now whether he has the capacity for it or not, he might be here because he's supposed to know all the law. But in arbitration you can decide, well, look at the profile of that man. Will he be in a position to handle my matter? And then go to him. Third and important, in matters of commerce, you have situations where people do not like their trade secrets to be known to others. In a court of law, they are open, known to everybody. But in an arbitration, it's behind closed doors, others are not available. So trade secrets. So they are kept secret, they are not open to the public at large. You may say there is a disadvantage, and what is the disadvantage? The sole disadvantage may be the cost factor insofar as the fees of the arbitrator are concerned, not the fees of the lawyers. But there are, at the same time, there are no court fees payable. So practically it balances out between the two factors, less hearings. So therefore arbitration as a means, as ADR to settle disputes is much better than going to ordinary courts of law. I am not speaking about mediation, my brother has spoken about that. Having said that,